The breeze was gentle on Sycamore Lane that morning, carrying the scent of magnolias and trimmed grass, but something hung in the air like a bruise, something sour, tense. Mr. Elijah Brooks sat on his front porch like he always did, rocking slowly on the same chair he'd had since '72, hands calloused, eyes still sharper than glass. An American flag flapped proudly from a tall pole beside him, rising from a garden of tulips, irises, and bright sunflowers. Then she came, Karen Maddox. Short bob cut, sharp enough to slice an ego. Clipboard clenched like a judge's gavel, lips curled in permanent disapproval. She didn't walk, she patrolled. Karen was president of the HOA for the West Sycamore Residential Association, an unelected tyrant with a vendetta against anything unregulated, non-neutral, or, God forbid, non-compliant. Her heels clicked up Elijah's sidewalk like a metronome of menace. He didn't stop rocking. "Mr. Brooks," she said, her voice laced with a syrupy mockery of respect, "we've discussed this. The flagpole exceeds the maximum height allowed under HOA Regulation 4.3.7. And your porch, those flower pots are not HOA-approved colors, earth tones only." Elijah didn't even blink. "This porch was built before your rules existed. So was that flagpole. And the day I fly a regulation-sized flag is the day you come pry it out of my cold hands, ma'am." She recoiled as though the words had smacked her. "We've sent you 3 notices. You've ignored each one. You're leaving me no choice." "You had no choice the moment you stepped onto this property, Karen, because you don't own this house. I do. And this land, bought it in 1968 with money I earned in the jungle of a country whose name you can't even spell." Her eyes narrowed. "Everyone in this neighborhood follows the rules. This isn't about you being a special case." Elijah rose slowly. Even at 78, he stood like a pillar, like roots clung to him from beneath. His skin was leathered and wise, his stance unshakable. "You ever held your best friend's hand while he bled out because the medevac didn't make it? You ever build your own home from cinder block and sweat while half the town refused to sell you concrete? I am the exception, Karen, because I earned every inch of this dirt you think you rule." But Karen just smiled tightly. "We'll see if the law agrees. Consider this your final warning." She turned, heels clacking a little faster. The next morning, Elijah woke to the sound of hammering. He shuffled out, robe flapping, only to find 2 HOA contracted workers drilling a notice board right into his yard. "Pending violation. Property under review for seizure due to non-compliance." "What the hell is this?" he growled. One worker, young, nervous, held up a paper. Sir, we're just following orders. We were told the property's in violation of multiple code infractions. Tell Karen Maddox that if she wants to take this house, she better come with a goddamn battalion." He called the county office. He called the sheriff. He even drove to the zoning department. But all roads led back to the same conclusion. The HOA has legal discretion due to the charter filed in 1997. Elijah didn't sign it, never agreed, but over time, like mold, the association had spread and swallowed every corner of the neighborhood, including his. And then came the fines. $50 for an unapproved mailbox flag, $200 for garden encroachment, $1,000 for excessive personal display of national symbols, $3,000 penalty for refusing access to HOA inspectors. He watched them pile up like spit on his legacy, but Elijah said nothing. He just kept sitting on his porch, writing in a black leather notebook, watching, waiting.
A week later, his granddaughter, Maya, came to visit. Fresh from college, camera in hand, she gasped at the notice signs lining his lawn. "Grandpa, what is this?" she asked, outraged. "Karen's crusade," Elijah replied, calm as the wind. "She thinks I'm just some old shadow on a rocking chair." Maya filmed everything: the flags, the porch, the notices, her grandfather's calm dignity as he told his story. Then she posted it online. 2 days later, the video had 2.3 million views. People began driving by Elijah's house to honk in support. Veterans came and saluted the flag on his lawn. A retired judge from Mississippi sent a handwritten letter. A civil rights historian dug into the HOA's charter and found cracks. Karen doubled down. She went on the local news, painting Elijah as a danger to community standards and a belligerent non-participant in neighborhood cohesion. She didn't expect what came next. A National Guard commander, retired, stood in front of Elijah's house during a live stream and said, "That man's not a nuisance. He's a foundation. He deserves a statue, not a summons." The pressure mounted, but Elijah stayed silent. Until the summons came. He was being sued. Karen's HOA was officially seeking to foreclose on his property. That was the moment something shifted in Elijah's eyes. He pulled out a weathered file from a fireproof lockbox. Inside, deeds, letters, photos, military certificates, land purchase documents from the late 60s, and one handwritten letter of land transfer, signed and notarized by the original landowners, including a man who happened to be Karen's great-uncle. The courtroom was packed. Karen stood at the plaintiff's table with her smug HOA lawyer, tall and cold as a lamppost. Elijah stood at the defense table with a volunteer veterans' rights attorney, a woman named Sandra Holt, who wore her hair like armor and her convictions like fire. Karen's side argued about codes, bylaws, and the need for uniformity. They painted Elijah as combative, uncooperative, outdated. Then it was Sandra's turn. She placed the original 1968 land deed on the table. This document predates the HOA's formation by nearly 30 years. My client never signed into the charter, and no retroactive clause can be enforced against a property that existed before the association's boundaries. She dropped another file. Furthermore, my client's land was purchased under the GI Bill after honorable discharge from Vietnam, where he earned 2 Bronze Stars. Attempts to seize this home infringe on multiple federal veterans' protections, including Title 38, Section 5301, which shields benefits and property acquired through military service. Karen's lawyer objected. The judge, an ex-Marine, overruled. Then Elijah stood, and silence fell.
"I came back from Vietnam with nothing but a duffel and ghosts," he said. "But I built this house with my bare hands. My wife rocked our babies on this porch. I buried her under the dogwood out back. This house is not in violation. It is sacred ground, and I will not be moved by the petty whims of someone who never had to earn what she was given." A pause. Then thunderous applause erupted from the gallery. Karen turned red. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. The judge leaned forward. "This court finds the HOA's actions not only unlawful, but morally repugnant. Case dismissed. All fines nullified. And I'm referring this case to the Attorney General's office for review of HOA abuse of authority." Elijah smiled. But he wasn't done. The gavel hadn't even cooled on the judge's bench when the ripple effect began. Cameras flashed like strobe lights outside the courthouse. Maya, now armed with both tears and pride, filmed her grandfather walking out, not defeated, but triumphant, head high, cane tapping the marble like a war drum. It went viral before they even got to the car. Karen was nowhere in sight. But Elijah knew she wasn't done. People like her never retreat. They regroup. The next morning, 2 things arrived: a bouquet of lilies with no note, and an envelope bearing the cold insignia of the HOA's Appeals and Preservation Committee. Elijah opened it slowly. Inside were words sharper than any bayonet he'd dodged in the jungle. The HOA will be seeking a county-wide injunction to reassess charter grandfather clauses. If successful, this will affect all pre-charter homeowners. Your case has started a precedent we now intend to overturn. She wasn't just targeting him anymore. She was coming for everyone. Elijah stood in the mirror that night, running a weathered hand across the ridged scar on his left side. Shrapnel from '69, a piece of war that never left his body. He'd survived napalm, monsoon, ambush, and bureaucracy. He wasn't about to let Karen Maddox steal what decades of blood couldn't. He opened the black notebook again. The last entry was 2 weeks old. He began to write. Names, stories, families. Every neighbor he'd seen grow from child to adult. Every veteran who'd bought a house with post-war stipends. Every widow who planted gardens in memory. He wrote not for revenge, but for the record. Because when history is erased, oppression thrives in the silence. Then he called Maya. He said, "I need your camera."
Mr. Brooks, your story's already on the House floor. I'd like you to come testify. The flight was paid for. Maya came too, filming the entire journey. Elijah wore his old service cap and sat beside generals, lawyers, and activists who'd all been silenced at some point by regulations dressed in discrimination. But when he spoke, America listened. "I was told I didn't belong when I came back from Vietnam," he said, voice cracking under 50 years of restraint. "And now, in my final season, I was told again that I didn't fit the vision of some paperwork patrolled by power-hungry suburban tyrants. But I didn't fight for their vision of America. I fought for the freedom to exist in mine." By the end of his testimony, grown men in suits were wiping tears. Karen's downfall wasn't explosive. It was surgical. The HOA board was audited. Turns out Karen had funneled $27,000 into community beautification projects that never happened. One inspector found a fake contractor license with her brother-in-law's name. The board voted 7-0 to remove her. But Elijah didn't celebrate. Not yet. He had one more plan. The annual community potluck, the same one he'd stopped attending after Karen turned it into a wine and cheese night with tuxedoed servers, was coming up. This year, Elijah asked to host it. The whole neighborhood buzzed. People came in droves. Some brought chairs, others dishes, but it wasn't just food on the table. It was healing. There were no speeches, just stories, laughter, hugs between old friends who hadn't dared visit each other due to HOA paranoia. Elijah cooked ribs on the same grill he'd used for his wedding anniversary back in '75. Maya filmed children running barefoot, chasing bubbles, a flag flapping above them with pride. At sundown, Elijah stood up and clinked a spoon against a mason jar. "I don't need revenge," he said softly. "I just needed my porch back." Everyone applauded. But then, almost like a bad smell returning, Karen showed up. She walked toward the gathering, alone, her eyes scanning faces that refused to welcome her. "I came to apologize," she muttered. "I thought I was doing what was best for the neighborhood." Elijah didn't move, but Maya stepped forward. "No, you did what was best for you. You forgot this wasn't just a subdivision. This was a community, and you almost broke it." Karen's face twisted, but she said no more. She turned and walked away, her heels silent this time. Months passed. Elijah's yard became more than a porch again. It became a pilgrimage site. Veterans from all over the country began leaving folded flags, medals, and notes at the foot of his flagpole. The county declared his house a historic property, immune to HOA bylaws. PBS gave Maya a grant to turn her short film into a full-length documentary. It was nominated for an Emmy under the title Porch Light, the house that stood still. And the HOA? It reformed, completely. New rules, new board, transparency, term limits. But Elijah never ran for any position. He just sat in his rocking chair, smiling, cane across his knees, watching the neighborhood he helped build finally remember who it belonged to. And on his porch wall, a new brass plaque was installed by the local VFW to Elijah Brooks, veteran, builder, neighbor. This house was never out of code. It was always the blueprint.